Well, hey guys, it's Viejo here, and we're at the end of May in 2025. Been saying that all week. Hey, another nice day here on the central coast of California, nice and sunny and warm. Probably 75 out today. It's supposed to be a little warmer tomorrow. Humidity is running around 60%, so it's real nice. Hey, as you probably already know, I received a donation from RCBS Company. They sent me some new gear. That really nice press, and we got a nice new beam balance, and we also got the UPM-3 competition model powder measure, and we're going to get into that today. And this is just going to be an overview and setup. Okay, we're not going to do a review of it. I want to use it first before I give an in-depth review of any kind. So we're just going to kind of take a look at it, get it out of the box, and get it set up for you. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, here we go. So we are looking at the RCBS. Get this guy centered here. Okay, UPM-3 competition powder measure. Okay, I have Uniflow powder measure 3 already, but this is the competition model, okay, part 9032. Okay, it says here, press and die not included. So let's kind of go around the box here and see what we got. Okay, I heard some rattling in there, not too much right here. It's just saying, it says scan the QR code right here to download the RCBS app. Okay, on the back, I'm looking at my camera backwards. That's why I keep shifting stuff here. We got a couple warnings. It can expose you to chemicals, including lead. Okay, that's the same thing in French. You're encouraged to recycle the packaging. This is important right here. It says made in USA from domestic and foreign components. Got a link here if you need to contact RCBS with a question. Okay. Over here we've got some of the features listed. 1 pound capacity, metered, metering baffle is in there. 1 cylinder. In the old days, the original Uniflows you could get with 2 separate cylinders, one that had a larger bore than the other. So if you're dispensing large rifle charges, okay, you would use the big one, and if you were using the smaller ones, smaller charges, you'd use the smaller diameter bore. 0.1 grain accuracy, okay, with micrometer for precise adjustments, and that 0.1 grain accuracy is pretty common in the industry. Okay, nobody wants to claim better accuracy than that. Some powders we can do better than that, okay, and some we might do that good. Okay, there's a drain attachment, and this is a nice feature, okay, that allows us to drain the hopper without having to take it off our stand or off the press if that's how you have it mounted. Okay, a threaded removable hopper. In the older versions of the Uniflow, that thing was just kind of jammed on there. There was something of a thread, but it was near impossible to get off. In many cases, you'd end up breaking the hopper trying to get it off if you needed to get down in there and clean or something. Okay, machined reference surfaces for tight tolerances. Ambidextrous design, which means you can put the handle over on the other side. Actually, you end up flipping the cylinder around on this one. Okay, and the powder, meter powder directly into the case with large and small drop tubes. All right, on the ends, nothing thrilling to see there. How about the other end? Same way, okay. All right, so let's go ahead and open up the box here and see what the innards look like. Okay, we've got several smaller items separately packaged. Here's our instructions I'll take a look at that here in a minute. And what do we got here? This is probably going to be my cylinder. Yep, okay, packaged in bubble wrap. Okay, to protect it. Seems like a nicely machined surface. It's got some kind of oil on it. Maybe we'll have to clean that before we use it. We definitely want to clean that cylinder bore out before we use that. All right, we'll set that aside for the moment. This is going to be our drain tube. And this is going to pop in and out of the cylinder. Okay, it's going to end up going in place of the metering tube, and it's going to allow us to drop powder directly out of there and into our container. Also got some film on it that will need to be cleaned up. Got a couple other small parts here. All right, this is a job for my skizzers. And so we got a large and small diameter drop tube. Again, depending on how much and what kind of powder you're going to use. So I will set those aside. Okay, here's a set screw, and I believe that that's going to go into the side of the cylinder to hold the metering screw in place. Yeah, that's going to go right into that hole right there. And I will, I'm looking down the hole there to see how far I can back that out. You only got a couple threads there, so careful with that. And then in here, I've got a die lock ring. Okay, and we'll talk about what that's for here in a moment. Oops, come back here, you got an escapee. Oh, and I hit the camera. It's not a California earthquake. All right, stay there. Okay, a couple of screws, and I think these are going to be for the handle. And so I'm going to put those, get them started in here again just to keep them from getting lost. I should have my magnetic tray out here, I think, but why does that not want to start? There we go. Okay, and these are Allen key, right? And let's see what else is in here. There's something, well, I guess I got to take the measure out next. This one's really oily. Okay, I don't know if you can tell the shine on my hands there from handling this guy. And I'm going to be careful handling the hopper. I don't want any of that oil that I just put on my fingers to get down into this hopper. And I see the lid. And I see the baffle. And I'm going to use my official Viejo baffle remover to get this guy out of there. I don't want it in there until I get it cleaned up. All right. There we go. Okay, so we will set that aside. We'll set the baffle aside. We'll set the lid aside. And then this has got to be the metering screw. Okay. And the piston that goes inside the cylinder. If you've never used these powder measures before, this works just like a piston in an automobile engine. Okay, this is the piston, and it's going to move in and out of that cylinder, okay, changing the displacement in there. All right. And these powder measures dispense powder by volume, not by weight. Okay, we've got this mounting device. This is so that you can mount your powder measure to your press. And the idea here is that you put this on top of your press and then screw a die down on top of it, and this will hold your powder measure off to the side of your press, and you can dispense a charge into the case, then put the case right into the shell holder and go ahead and seat your bullet if that's the step that you're on, which it probably would be. Okay, and I will set that aside. Still missing my handle. There it is. Okay, there's our handle. This looks like an aluminum handle. Okay, and a bearing knob on it, which is nice. Okay. All right. I am going to set the box aside and all of our packing materials and get that out of here. And I'm going to quickly go through the instructions and see if there's anything significantly different from my UPM-3, the non-competition version. So stand by. All right, taking a look at the instructions, there's two sheets. The first one, okay, is double-sided 8.5 by 11, and some identifying information here on what you're looking at. Okay, kind of a motto here and some customer service information. We've got some reloading safety information over here. Okay, more safety information here about primers and powder. Okay, you can read that, and if you're new to reloading, you definitely want to go through this. Okay, talks about not using too much force on primers and don't be smoking around the powder and such. A lot of it's common sense, but if you're new to reloading, it may not be all that sensible to you. Then we open this up and we've got a parts list here. Okay. And an explanation of the limited lifetime warranty. Take a look at that. It says that it's warranted to be free from defects of workmanship as long as the original owner owns it. And the warranty is extended only to the original consumer purchasers. Okay, so that's all that's on this first sheet. There's nothing in the way of use instructions or anything like that on that sheet. Okay, then we go to the second sheet here, and now we've got main features and specifications. And it says if we got a threaded hopper, quick change hopper drain, and ambidextrous design. Hopper capacity is 1 pound of powder, and the approximate metering range. And it gives some examples. IMR 4350 extruded powder from 5.4 plus or minus 0.3 grains up to 94.6 plus or minus 0.4 grains. One full rotation of the metering screw is equal to 3 grains. Alliant 300 MP ball powder, 1.3 plus or minus a tenth grain up to 103.8 plus or minus 0.4 grains, and one full rotation of the metering screw is 4 grains. Alliant bullseye flake powder, 0.4 plus or minus 0.1 grains up to 63 plus or minus 0.3 grains, and one full rotation of metering screw equals 3 grains. Okay, so that would be something that the individual reloader would go through and figure out for him or herself what one full rotation of the metering screw would be equivalent to with that particular powder. I've done that with my other metering screws and come up with a kind of a chart that's a quick reference for me. Okay, now we're over here where it says before use. It says to disassemble the unit completely and thoroughly clean it to prepare your powder measure, okay? And it says first remove the plastic hopper, okay? I think the packaging has changed. It says by rotating it in a counterclockwise direction off of the main body casting, but this came separated already. In my box anyway. It says remove the black rubber stopper inserted in the metering cylinder. Well, there was no black rubber stopper in there. That was packaged and wrapped separately. And then it says carefully slide the cylinder out of the main casting. Okay, so it did not come in the main casting. It was separate. So I think their packaging process has changed since this set of instructions was written. Okay, then it says to clean, okay, everything, which I did. And I have the main casting mounted on an RCBS powder measure stand already, and I cleaned all of this stuff. Okay, I just used some rubbing alcohol, okay, and some Q-tips, rag and paper towels. And to get down through the slots, I got out my gun cleaning kit, and I got some patches on my brass rod and ran those in and out of that bore down through there. And the same thing here. Okay, we got the cylinder cleaned out. Okay, we got the drain tube cleaned out as well. Okay, and I also cleaned out these guys with a Q-tip and some alcohol. I will say that before I actually use this guy, get you zoomed out here, I'm going to get in here and all of the passageways where powder is going to go, I'm going to coat with some graphite. Okay, in here also. Okay, but we'll do that later. Okay, I'm not going to do it right now. And using this dried graphite, this is kind of a spray can of it, to kind of coat the linings of the powder passageways in these powder measures is an idea I got from the TreeTopFlier. And he did a really good video on using this stuff. And I'm going to put a link to that in the description box. So go over and check his channel out if you've never seen TreeTopFlier. He's got a lot of good stuff over there. But anyway, check that one out. It's talking about what we should and shouldn't use. It says any mild cleaning solvent such as isopropyl alcohol, which is what I use, will work if it doesn't leave an oily residue. So I would recommend you don't use a CLP type product to get in there because it's going to leave some oil, and we don't want that. We want these guys to be dry, okay, and free from oil because powder will stick in there. Okay. Let's see. Thread in the micrometer thimble completely to expose the length of the metering screw. Okay, so that's talking about turning this guy. If I turn this guy back out, I don't know if you can see that metering screw coming back into this housing right now. Okay, so it says do this. Okay, turn this guy out so that it is fully extended. Oh, I wanted to mention that when I took this out of the packaging and went to clean it, I had a couple of visitors that were in there. Okay. You see those? A couple of little pieces of, it looks like lathe turnings to me. Okay. They're very brittle, just fell out of there. They were kind of around the end of that piston. They're more or less the same diameter as that piston. So I don't know what's up with that. Hopefully it's not a part that I need, but I don't think so. I think it's machined stuff. It says clean the exposed screw, and I did that. Okay, cleaned this whole thing with my solvent, the alcohol. Okay. All right, it says once all components are clean and dry, the UPM-3 competition is ready to be assembled. So we'll do that next. All right, our instructions say that on one side of our cylinder there are three 1032 holes. Okay, and that's going to be where our handle mounts. And it says on the other side is a 3/8 24 threaded hole. Now the cylinder and the handle are both kind of set up, and we've got holes in the cylinder here to allow you to use this cylinder on either side. In other words, put the handle on either side. Okay, it'll work either way. Not only that, but you can set the handle up to throw your powder on the downstroke or on the upstroke, your preference. I prefer to throw on the downstroke. Okay, the hole here where this little set screw goes, that's where your metering screw is going to go. So the business end that picks up the powder and so forth and drops it, okay, is going to be on the end opposite that set screw. So think about that when you go ahead and put this cylinder in. It'll be a little bit tight. It's machined very closely. That set screw can be in there now, and I went ahead and set mine up just so that I wouldn't lose it. But you may have to wiggle that a little bit to get it in there, just like that. Okay, now I have that set screw backed out, and I can see into the bore there, and I can see that my set screw is not protruding beyond the cylinder walls there. Now the instructions had said before to run this guy all the way out, but I'm going to tell you that that's going to be troublesome to get the end of that set screw lined up with this little hole in your adjustment screw here. Okay, you want this guy to be backed in a ways. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that dome of that piston is going to ride up against the casting back there, and you won't be able to get this guy far enough in there. So pull this guy back in a little bit, look at that hole, kind of line it up visually with where that set screw is going to be, and this is going to be a little tricky for you to get that lined up. Oops, especially if you drop it. Okay, and it's going to be all by feel. Okay. Okay, there I've got it, I think. Is that right? Yeah. And there's a little shoulder right here. And if if you find yourself with that shoulder all the way touching the casting, you're in too far. Okay. That shoulder's got maybe a 1/16 of an inch clearance from the casting when it's in the right spot. Okay. And if you've got any of the shaft, what would be the piston rod, okay, showing in here, then you're out too far this way. Okay, you should not be able to see that shiny piston rod there, and the shoulder here should not be resting on the casting when you've got your proper alignment with that set screw. And the same deal here, okay, no wrenches on that. Okay, there's no need for that. All that's going to do is keep this whole thing from turning, keep that piston head from rotating inside. All we want that thing to do is go back and forth like this. Okay, so if I were to turn this all the way in now, okay, now that piston head is lodged up against the back of the casting right there. Okay, it's gone through the other hole, okay, and is pushing up against the casting, and so it doesn't want to move. Okay, so I went ahead and put my hopper on. And again, just a 180-degree turn. That's nice. This guy, and it gets in there nice and firm. And I also got my drop tube in there. I want to show you about the drain tube while we're at this point. Okay, this is real simple. We do have to take the adjustment screw out, and if you're going to do this when you got powder in the hopper. Okay, so we got to take our adjustment screw out, so we have to loosen that set screw. And notice I'm kind of hanging on to my handle here, because if I let this thing go, okay, and it comes back up and fills my cylinder again, then I'm liable to dump powder. So we will go ahead and stick this guy in. It's got a slot there for that set screw. It's a big slot. You can't miss it on this one. Okay, and when we move our handle up now, okay, the fill hole is over here, and so that's going to come up and synchronize with the bottom of the hopper there, and the powder is going to come running out. So be sure you've got your catchment bottle. If you're going to drain this right back into your powder bottle, be sure it's ready to go. So you just got to kind of watch that. Okay. And our fill hole is down there. So get this guy in. Don't let the handle go, ride up on you, and do that until you're ready to go. Okay, simple. Okay, so now I've got to get this guy back out and go put my adjustment screw back in. Okay, and once you've done this a few times, okay, and kind of get where the alignment is supposed to be, okay, then it becomes pretty easy, especially if you pay attention to where that little shoulder is, okay? All right, next thing we've got to do is we got to zero out this screw, and what we're looking for is we want the zero mark there, okay, right there, to be lined up with the zero on the vernier out here, okay? And we got a little set screw right there, and we're going to loosen that up, okay? And first we're going to run this guy all the way in, okay, such that it will kind of stay in place. Don't crank on it, because now we have our piston head up against the edge of the casting, meaning that's as far in as it can go. In other words, there's zero volume in there right now, okay? And we want that to kind of stay put there. And all we have to do now is loosen that set screw, and then this guy is free to slide back and forth, okay, either way. And we will shove this guy in and rotate it until the zero line on the vernier lines up with the zero line. Barely see it right there, okay? So let's go do that. So I'm going to loosen my set screw down here, and you can give it a good full turn. And what that's going to do is loosen up this part that makes it free to slide either direction, okay? And we've got this guy adjusted in first so that the piston head is kind of up against the casting, but backed off maybe the equivalent of 1 or 2 hash marks on here. You don't want it rubbing on there, but you want it still as far in as you can go. In other words, you want the cylinder volume zeroed out, okay? So if we're at that point, now we can move this guy in, okay? And what I want to do is I want to line up this edge of my vernier, okay, onto that zero horizontal hash mark on the stem there, okay? I want that edge lined up right on there because that's my zero mark, okay? Right there, and I know that's hard for you guys to see, but when you're in here looking at it, you'll see that horizontal hash mark on this part of the assembly. Now I'll rotate my vernier until the zero line here is lined up, okay, with the hash mark on the stem there, okay? So that is zeroed out, and then now I can come over here and retighten my set screw, and we'll try to do this, okay, without turning, you know, this anymore. We want it to stay zeroed. So there's that. Now, as I back this out, of course, I can increase the volume in there, and we'll turn this in and call that zero. And I'm just maybe a half of a hash mark off of a complete dead stop there, okay? So that we're not wearing against the casting. And a couple of other final thoughts. I have my powder measures all set up on Hornady lock and load bushings because I put them on this stand, okay? Hornady's lock and load powder measure stand. Okay, and I dispense my powders through here because I will occasionally use these different powder measures. Okay, even my little dandy is set up that way. So there's that. Both the UPM-3 and the UPM-3 competition came with our drain spouts, and you need a place to keep that handy. They're steel, so a magnet works if you've got something metallic close by to hold that. So that lives right there. Okay. There it is then, the RCBS UPM-3 competition model, all set up and ready to go. I'm going to cycle some powder through here, and I'm going to get my internals coated with some graphite before I use it the first time. But this you'll see me using. It's going to stay out and ready to use. So we'll be testing it out here in some future videos to see how the powder dispensing actually goes. That'll be a different video. Okay, there you go. We got her all set up and ready to go. And what I'll do the next time, I'm going to do a follow-up video on this because I want to do a little bit of testing with it. As you guys know, I'm mostly a handgunner, and so I want to test some handgun powders that I have here through this powder measure and see how it runs. Okay, we'll use some different kinds of powders. Okay, we'll use something, you know, like H110, and we'll use a big flake like Unique and some 231 tight group. Okay, maybe some 4227, some different styles of powder, and see how this guy handles those as far as precision and, you know, is it going to leak with our finer powders and so forth. So we'll do that on another video after I've had a kind of a chance to use this. And I also have the UPM-3, not the competition model, and I want to draw some comparisons. So we'll do all that in the next video. Might be a couple weeks before we get there. All right, I think that's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed that and got something out of it. But from the Viejo bench for now, that's all she wrote.